Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 9 of the Drop Lob Pod. I'm your host, Nathan, and I'm here with my co-host, Edik. Edik, you ready to talk some tennis today?
Let's talk some tennis.
All right. So we were away last week for those of you that have followed us a little bit, but we're back right now. The only real thing that we missed in terms of main tour tennis was the ATP Next Gen Finals, which is a tournament for the top 8 players in the rankings under 21 years old. This year, the number one seed, Jakub Mensik, who's about 25 or 30 in the world right now, did withdraw. So the number one seed was world number 29, Lerner Tien from America. And then we had 7 other players rounding out the draw. We had Alexander Blokix. I might have butchered that last name. It's just Block with an X at the end. Kind of love his last name. I think a lot of people enjoy it. But of Belgium, we had Dino Prismic of Croatia, Martin Landulus, Spain, Nicholas Budkov Kyer of Norway, I believe, Nisesh Basavaridi from America, Justin Engel from Germany, and Rafael Hodar from Spain, who also plays college tennis right now at University of Virginia. Um, should I go into who won the tournament, Edik, or do we want to kind of work our way up to it?
Yeah, I think you can go into who won and we can just talk about what we feel the
All
next
right,
year.
so the tournament was won by our favorite from pre-tournament, Leonard Tien. He was a little bit better than even to win the tournament, according to the odds makers before it started. So it was in fact expected. He had a rough first match against Rafael Hodar, who came back from down, I believe, 5 match points, including a 40 love service game up from Leonard Tien, where he was broken. Very impressive comeback from Hodar. Definitely will be a guy to watch rising in the rankings as he most likely focuses more on the main tour and less on college next year. Plenty of weapons. But yeah, Leonard Tien got his footing after that, won every other match he played in, beat Budkov, beat Blokix in the finals, beat Basaridi pretty badly, actually broke him almost every time. Seemed like Basaridi was a little injured. Beat Landalus. So he looked pretty impressive, as seems to have been the theme with him this year. If you What were you most impressed by, I guess, with Tien's game in these finals, especially on indoor hard, which isn't always known to be his strongest surface?
Yeah, it was nice to see him win the tournament, obviously, because last year he made a deep run but wasn't able to win it. I think it's always tough when there's an expectation that you're supposed to win the tournament. And then, you go out there and you do it. So that was extra impressive. For Tien, I think that he has a strong support system. Obviously, Michael Chang is helping him out, the famous American player. And from my side, I really am just interested to see how he progresses. Obviously, he had a great year, notable wins over Medvedev and a lot of top 10 players. I just always go back to
Well,
the weapons and does he have enough? So I'm really interested to see how he progresses throughout the next year. Can he crack the top 20? Because he's a very clean ball striker. Everybody talks about that, but he doesn't have the weapons like a Mensik or a Fonseca does. So I'd be interested to see if he can back it up this next year.
I agree with that. Yeah, very clean ball striker. Also beat your favorite player, Alexander Zverev, this year, near the beginning of the year. So a couple of very impressive wins over some top players. But obviously, yeah, I mean, he's got to work on his game on clay. He's got a lot of room to grow there. It seems like a surface that he should play well on, but yeah, he didn't gain very many points there this year. Didn't play very impressively. I know he's from California, where there aren't a ton of clay courts, and some of the players from that area seem to struggle on the clay on the pro tour. So maybe he'll be able to break through there a little bit. Other than that, I personally actually had Blockix in the finals against Larry Tien. I really like his game for indoor. He just kind of rips the crap out of the ball, which tends to play well on these surfaces. I think the seeding was like pretty accurate in a tournament, which is actually kind of rare. Like usually seeds are just based on circumstance or timing. But I feel like running down the seeds, besides maybe putting Kyer a little bit higher, maybe flipping him with like Landalus, I think like the seeds were pretty accurate. Blockix was really impressive. Prismic, Dino Prismic, like hits the crap out of the ball as well. Good for indoor. Um, Landalus, I don't know if you've seen him play. He also hits the ball really hard, but his mental game is just terrible. Like he just lapses and just can't convert on big moments. I was impressed with the Norwegian with Kyer. Like I thought he played much better than I expected. Was competitive in like every match, so maybe look to see him rising up a little bit. I have no idea. I'll go back to the American because I feel like we're a little more interested in our countrymen. If you saw Basavariti, I thought he was going to be incredible last year. Honestly, like I was really high on him, and now I'm just not so sure if he's going to be able to really bring anything into his game to differentiate himself from like those above him. Like, do you think that he's going to be kind of more of a guy that hangs around the top 100 cusp or a little below, or you think he could have a breakthrough still at some point?
It's a good question. He just hired Medvedev's old coach, so I think that that's a really solid addition to the team because he has experience coaching at the highest level and he might have some insights, especially when you're trying to make deeper runs in Grand Slams and you don't have experience there. I think ultimately, again, he falls into that category of really clean ball striker, but nothing really jumps off the page. He doesn't have like a huge serve or a huge forehand or backhand. I think he's a really smart player, and I think that he'll probably hover around that 50 to 75 range, just given his consistency and clean ball striking. But it is someone who, has made good progress. He had nice runs in the Australia season last year. So I think he'll crack the top 50 this year, and he's a solid professional.
I would be impressed to see him crack the top 50. I actually have him kind of just staying stagnant. I don't really see anything in his game that's going to propel him past other people. And I feel like he comes out flat a lot of the time. But yeah, hiring Medvedev as coach could change a lot of those things. And then Engel, like he's solid. He had some good wins this year. Like I know he beat Struff and went deep in a tournament, but I'd rather talk about Hodar. I know that there's a lot of hype on him. Like when I was at the USTA watching the college finals, like it was mentioned a bunch of times that he's by and far probably the best player in college tennis right now. Like obviously he beat a top 30 player this week in very impressive fashion coming back. Um, if you've seen a lot of his game, do you think that he could also stand to maybe rise into the top 100 or even further this next year?
No, I definitely think that he can get into the top 100. I really like his game style. I think that always playing at the collegiate level is helpful for the maturation of a player and transitioning into that next level. You get a lot of match play. You get to see a lot of different styles and compete on a weekly basis. I think it's an interesting format, the next gen finals. Obviously, it's the short sets, so it's sort of hard sometimes to get a real gauge of players' level. It's interesting also to look back at previous years, like, some years Tiafoe was in there, Sinner was in there, and probably no one would have predicted that Sinner would have been at this level right now, just
Yeah.
looking and doing the eye test back then. And you also have players like Borna Coric. I remember that he was in it, and he's really struggled to live up to expectations. He's had a lot of injuries. Also, Chung, the Korean player, has had a lot of injuries. So many things have to go right in order for these players to make it to the top. And a lot of that is dependent on their health, getting the right mentoring and coaching. But I'm very supportive of the tournament. Honestly, I wish they would just make it regular full
Yeah.
sets. I'm not a big fan of the short sets, but overall, I think it's a good product.
Yeah. Just to clarify real quick for probably most of our listeners, short sets in tennis format are usually sets that go to 4 games instead of 6 games. For this tournament, they also don't play with ads. There's also no doubles in the next gen finals. Usually a tournament will have singles and doubles draws. So the courts don't have doubles lines on them, which might make it look a little funny to most tennis viewers. I feel like they probably just do that to kind of differentiate the tournament since there are just so many throughout the year and so many finals at the end. If you know any more than that, more about that than me, like, do they just do that to make the tournament seem different? Because it doesn't seem like a whole lot of logic to it. And it also, when you're not playing with ads, when you're playing short sets, when you're playing just an odd format, I think it creates more kind of variance in the results. Like, obviously, the best player did win this year, but it creates more chances for odd results. Um,
Yeah, definitely. The short sets, no ads lends itself to big servers and people who have weapons. In terms of the court, I really think they're just like saying, hey, if we're not playing doubles, like we don't need the alleys, so we're not going to add them in. And also, it's just another intrigue. I have played on courts like that where there are no alleys. It is a little bit weird, just visually speaking, but. I think that it's just another way for them to get fans to tune in to be like, What's going on here?" So
yeah,
I
I
like it.
I kind
I'm
of
not
like courts
opposed
with
to
no alleys. I'm not a big doubles guy personally. I'm not being Riley Opelka, who's a American pro that's spoken out very vocally against doubles as at a professional level. Like I'm not saying that. I'm not very good at it.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so the ATP Next Gen Finals are over. We do have the Battle of the Sexes this week, which is a match between Nicholas Kyrgios and Arina Sabalenka, current world number one in the women's. Kyrgios obviously reached a high somewhere in the teens a while back. One of the biggest what ifs in tennis, according to many people. Super, super talented, huge personality. Many probably have seen him on social media, even if they haven't seen him play tennis. Super fun to watch, but he's struggled with some major wrist injuries that have kind of derailed his career. He's now playing in Sabalenka. I believe it's in Madison Square Garden, if I'm not mistaken. Later this week, Kyrgios is only going to get one serve each time, like instead of the normal two serves. And I believe he has a slightly smaller court as well to hit into. I assume that means that the players will not be switching sides during the match if the court is altered like that. Um, but Kyrgios is still a relatively big favorite to win. Usually, in past battles of the sexes that have happened, the men have prevailed, even if they're ranked relatively worse than the women. And Kyrgios is quite close to Sabalenka. But that being said, I think that Sabalenka, in my personal opinion, is probably the best or second best, depending on ego, woman to put up in a matchup like this, because she just can hit the ball very hard and hang in there. Um, I guess what they're playing normal, just two set format for six. I believe no ad as well. What would you be expecting from a match like this if you were to just take a toss at the final scoreline? And also, what effort level would you expect out of the players?
So yeah, it's an interesting idea. I still think that Kyrgios is playing at a high level. I know people are saying he's past his prime, but he's still practicing. He's still playing. The court will be smaller, for him to hit into. They both get one serve, and I know it is actually happening in Dubai. There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of money getting pumped into the
Goodbye.
tournament, but. Honestly, I think one set will be tight, maybe a 7-5 or a 7-6 for Kyrgios, and then the second set 6-2. Ultimately, the one serve each doesn't not help Sabalenka. I think that actually hurts her a lot more. She struggled with making serves in the past, and now if you only give her one serve, she can't go after it as much. Whereas Kyrgios, he's been known to go for big second serves and still make them at a high clip. Will I tune in? Probably. Do I think that it's going to get watched a lot? I don't. And I also think that there's probably a little bit of an agreement that let's make it somewhat close, and then towards the end of the sets, let's like duel it out. So that's just me personally.
I'm not a huge fan of the one serve from Kyrgios just because, God forbid, he does have a bad serving day. Like double faults are not very interesting to watch for anyone. Um, so I mean, I don't really want to watch just Sabalenka walk back and forth while receiving 11 double faults in the match. I mean, usually a player's first serve percentage is around like 60 to 70% in a match, which would provide a ton of double faults. So I believe he's probably going to have to take something off of what his normal first serve is. I'm sure we'll see some underhand serves. I'm sure we'll see some trick shots from him, but I just think that like the only problem with the one serve is just watching double faults. If anything, I would have maybe rather seen the service box be slightly smaller for him as well, in some respect, or shorter. So he had to take a little off it in that manner, and maybe let her drive into the ball from closer up in the court. But yeah, I mean, I'll tune in as well unless it's like actually pay-per-view. Because I do obviously always want to support Nick Kyrgios. He's still one of my favorites despite many things happening that have been relatively unfavorable. And yeah, I'd look forward to see what happens. I'd say Kyrgios should win. I just think he's such a wild card. I genuinely never know what he'll do, but I'd be quite shocked if he lost the match. And
Yeah.
then after the Battle of the Sexes, we're going to have a little break into the new year, and then we'll be going right into the tournaments for next year. We're going to start with the United Cup, which is a nation-based competition that happens over in Australia, leading up to the Australian Open. It's always a fun one to watch in my experience. And then after that, they'll start off the Pro Tour with an ATP tournament in Adelaide. I believe they actually have two of those that happen there, and then one in Brisbane, Australia as well, before the Australian Open starts up in about mid-January. Which are you more excited for between the United Cup and Adelaide, and why?
Yeah, so there's quite a few events always the first week. We have the United Cup, there's a WTA 500 in Brisbane, WTA 250 in Auckland, and then ATP Hong Kong 250, ATP Brisbane 250, and then obviously, they'll have Adelaide after. So I just love the United Cup. 2024 was such a good year. Obviously, for folks that haven't watched it yet, they are countries, so you'll have a male player, a female player. They'll play men's singles, women's singles, and then mixed doubles, sort of a round robin format. And then ultimately, a few teams qualified to the next round. In 2024, it was won by Germany, and that was Alexander Zverev. I got to mention him.
Your
His
favorite.
peak. He was playing with Angelique Kerber and Laura Siegemund in doubles, and I've never seen him play so well. He beat Hurkacz and other top players, and I think
Me
that that
too.
was his ultimate peak. He ended up beating Alcaraz in the Australian Open that year. Of course, he lost later in the tournament, but it's a fun environment. I think players like, going and competing there because they get guaranteed matches and it's sort of a little bit of a lower pressure environment. So I always tune in to watch that one. But the new season is so fun because you get to see new partnerships with coaches, which I did want to talk about Carlos and Ferrero in a second. And then, new outfits, new rackets, new strings. We'll get to see. There's some people that like I'm telling you, Amanda Anisimova is not training. I see people are not training, and I'm ready for them to flop in the new year. And on the flip side, I see people like Clara Towson, who I don't really love, but she's training a lot, so I think she's going to do well. So, I'll tune into United Cup for the most part, but we'll keep an eye on the other tournaments.
Uh-oh. Slight freeze there. So that's on me for dropping the ball on the tournaments to start the year. But we're excited to see the United Cup. You got the Australian Open coming up after that. Anything that you're excited to see maybe with the Australian Open this year? I'm gonna backtrack, and I'm sorry to everybody listening. I had a little brain freeze. Carlos Alcaraz. That's something I probably should have started with. Actually, huge news in the tennis community. Has split with his longtime coach Juan Carlos Ferrero, who's been coaching him since he was a teenager. I did watch the Carlos Alcaraz documentary on Netflix as a stout tennis fan, And they basically got placed together by the Spanish Tennis Federation back when he was about 14 years old or so. He's now in his early 20s. He's won 6 majors with Ferrero. Like, he's been incredible. And I really like, they both wished each other the best. It seems like a very amicable split. I can't exactly understand why they split, especially given the success they've been having. Maybe you can shed more light onto that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts because tennis players and coaching partnerships are definitely more of your thing than my thing.
Yeah, so I heard a couple different rumors from various sources. One, I heard that Ferrera was upset at the amount of exhibitions that Carlos was doing, and that there was a disagreement over the off season and what it should look like. I also heard that there was potential friction between Ferrero and the father, Carlos's father, that had been going on, and that ultimately they gave him a contract that was the same as the previous years, gave him 2 days to sign it. He didn't sign it. They didn't come to an agreement. And also, he has a young family, which he's expressed multiple times that he wants to be around more. So, it's interesting. Ferrero obviously helped
Is it
develop
Ferrer or
Carlos.
Ferrer, actually? I believe it might just be Ferrer.
Ferrero, Juan Carlos Ferrero, I promise you.
I
Um,
trust you.
and he developed his game very well, 6 Grand Slams. But I don't know, I feel like there was not that much involved. There hasn't been that much involvement in Carlos's game. Sinner's evolved way more over the past couple years, and I think a fresh start could help Carlos. I think he will hire, someone maybe like David Ferrer, the Spaniard, or someone in that system to help him.
Rafa Nadal?
Yeah, maybe. Um, but I don't think it's a bad thing. The timing is terrible. Carlos is not going to win the Australian Open. I guarantee you that right now, which is the
Yeah,
one he needs.
Sinner owns that tournament at this point.
Yes, yes, he does. So we'll see. I think ultimately he'll be fine, but they certainly could have managed the timing better.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it definitely did not come at a very opportune moment with the season about to start with them in the off season. It definitely probably it's pure speculation. We're not inside his camp, but the timing of it would probably speak to some more of an issue because it's happening like at a time where they'd be training together or they'd be spending time together. I'm sure that a bunch of rumors that are false will come out. I'm sure eventually the true rumors will come out or one of them will speak to it. I'm sure that they probably will maintain some respect for each other there because they have achieved so much together. And obviously, not every split has to be not amicable. Um, but that being said, we've gone through all those tournaments. You want to do a little bit of drop or lob to wrap ourselves up here?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You want to toss some at me, or I
I
toss some at you?
will. I will toss one at
Toss
you.
some at
So,
me. I believe it's my turn to answer. I'm really
yeah.
looking like you're feeling opinionated today.
Okay. Drop or lob 1 point tournaments.
I'm gonna lob it. I'm gonna lob the crap out of it. And to be perfectly honest, it's funny you asked that because I just came on to 1 point tournaments for the first time yesterday on my Instagram feed. Um, so 1 point tournament, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. You got a draw of players. They play literally 1 point. Whoever wins that point advances to the next round of the draw or to play another person. Sometimes it's round robin. And I know that they're having some sort of event at the Australian Open with a pretty large prize pool for the winner of 1 point tournaments. My biggest drawback to it would be how you're going to sanction them because tennis players at a lower level, and this is not to speak to every tennis player, because to be honest, I've played some tournaments recently where everybody's been incredibly nice and incredibly fair, but there's definitely some contingents in tennis because the margins are so fine and the ball comes so fast with line calls and ethical dilemmas with cheating. So I think especially in a 1 point tournament where that one ball means everything, when it comes close to the line, is it getting called out more than it's getting called in? How are we monitoring that? Do we have one person sitting in the chair the whole time? But I just think it's fun. I think it tests people under pressure. I think obviously there's a lot of variance to it being that way, but that just kind of creates some new winners. And I think it would be interesting to see if it's something that happens more over time, if there are any specific people that maybe have repeat success that really show themselves to have that clutch gene under pressure.
Love it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Australian Open 1 point tournament. Okay. Drop or lob, smashing rackets during a match.
Hmm. For me personally, I'm going to drop it. I've never smashed a racket during a match myself. I'm not going to speak to whether or not that's due to me being mentally stable or due to me not having the ability to smash a racket if I tried, or not being in a financial position where I feel comfortable to smash a racket and buy another, given that I don't make any money off tennis. Um, I'm going to drop it with a couple of exceptions for players that I think make it look cool. Our previously mentioned Nick Kyrgios, my king, if he smashes a racket, I'm there for it. If Alexander Bublik smashes a racket, I'm turning the volume up 10. I'm there for it. If someone like maybe Corentin Moutet smashes a racket, I'm there for it. Basically, if a player has a flair for the dramatic, if they're known for being an entertainer first and they smash a racket, I'm there for it. And I think that there are also just reasonable crash outs in tennis. So I would say I'm going to drop it as an overall, but situationally speaking, say a line judge makes a terrible call or something egregious happens, a fan screams during your second serve, like a player pegs you in the family jewels of the tennis ball or something like that. I could smash a racket for sure, but just missing three balls because you're playing poorly and deciding that the racket gets it is definitely not behavior that I'm going to log.
I like it. That's a good answer. As a coach, I always, tell people or students, never to smash the racket, to have respect. I can't say the same thing about myself. I've smashed quite a few in my years. Let's just leave it at that. Quite a few. All
You're
right, I got
very,
one.
very calm tempered for everybody watching. I say that with the utmost sincerity.
Yeah, I got one more for you. So there was a rumor going around that Craig Tiley, who's the head of Tennis Australia and the tournament director of the Australian Open, I've actually been lucky enough to be friends with him through different people. But there was a rumor going around that he is going to take over the USTA and come in as the head of the USTA. So drop or lob, Craig Tiley trading from Tennis Australia and coming to USTA.
Would he be the new CEO? I'm
He
not sure.
would be the new CEO, which in theory which would not be the tournament director for the US Open, but would still play a
Yeah,
big
no.
part.
I think that I mean, as two people that worked at USCA, I was actually lucky enough to get to meet the last CEO, Lucia, a couple of times. I personally was a fan of him from what I saw. Obviously, I was a front desk manager. I was not a C-suite executive, so I was not dealing directly with the ups and downs of the company or the ins and outs, and I still am not to this day. But I think that in theory, somebody that already has experience in that area, and Australia has produced tons of great tennis players, tons of great tennis tournaments. I know that, like, as we said, like they have good tournaments leading up to Australian Open. The Australian Open's always a fan favorite every year. We mentioned Kyrgios just now. Obviously, my go Cruz Hewitt's coming up. I know that's not the second player to mention, but on the women's side, actually, there are a couple of very good players coming up as well for them. So I think they run a very strong program. I'm not familiar with him like you are, but if he's friendly with you, if he knows USTA, I think that could be a good move for them. There's definitely much worse things you can do than someone that's already had success in your industry. I would have hated to see them just bring in like a corporate CEO that's just looking to focus on cost first and doesn't care about the game. So a person that's passionate about tennis would probably be a great addition to the company.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all I got for you. I'm really looking forward to the start of the new year. We have big plans to continue keeping up the
Yeah,
podcast. There'll be a lot more, to talk about come the new year.
yeah. I think just to circle back, we're making it full circle from the beginning when I was talking about this. We did miss last week just because there were no tournaments, and then Edik had some things to deal with yesterday in his personal life, so we had to push back to today. But going forward, we're going to be doing our best to be diligent about getting the podcast episodes out on Sunday around like 8 p.m. or so when we've been releasing them. If that changes for any reason, we will make sure to put out some sort of announcement video. I'm going to try to get us some socials running, get our podcast out on a couple different platforms so all you guys, not just the YouTube. We do obviously appreciate everybody that's listened, whether it's our friends, whether it's people that have been enjoying what we were talking about, hopefully people that are both. And we hope to look forward to, in fact, continuing to have you listening in the new year. We're going to have plenty of more guests on, plenty of things to talk about. And yeah, we look forward to continuing to grow the podcast. And on that note, I think that's a good place to wrap up episode number 9. Any final words, Edik?
No final words. Looking forward to it. Happy holidays to everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, that was cheesy, man. All right, we're done on that. See you guys.